Stephen Mansfield, New York Times bestselling author and speaker.
Doug Tenaple, I'm the creator of Earthworm Jim.
Tweet groups.
I'm Victor Dweck.
Joseph Carter, I'm the Mink Man.
This is Dave Baker from Forged in Fire.
This is Leah Morgan. I'm a comedian, and this is why you should never
Never.
Not ever.
Don't waste your time.
Oh, you really should.
listen to those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I am Lucas Pinkert. I'm the Reverend for this episode and all episodes into perpetuity. But now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to heed to tricep, mill about smartly around the premises. And let me introduce you to the Reprobate, Dan Gibson.
I'm Dan Gibson. I'm playing the Reprobate today.
Oh, wow.
I'm stealing your line.
Congratulations.
And on today's episode, we have the fabulous, the talented, the dimpled Kira Davis.
Kira is, I feel like we always say like, oh, this is one of my favorite guests, but every guest we've had on has been incredibly cool.
I love all of our guests.
Kira, I think, is one of the guests that consistently gives me an education.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that I love her so much, because I consume Kira's media weekly. So I listen to her Just Listen to Yourself podcast. I love her as a follow on Twitter.
My favorite thing is tweeting at her.
Yes. Yeah. Kira is very responsive to our tweets, and both in good and bad ways.
Not all of them deserve attention.
No, they don't. But she does. I think in our case,
hey, at Kira Davis.
Yeah.
What do you think about spaghetti?
She treats us a little like that nephew that she, those troublemaking nephews she sees sometimes at the family reunions, where she's like, oh, look, you did a thing that's funny. Oh, look, boys.
Don't set the blocks on fire.
You shouldn't do that. You need to stop doing that now. I'm not going to tell your mother, but I am going to tell you.
But the match is down.
Yep, stay it away. So Kira was great. We get into some talk about aliens. We talk a lot about race. And the way that
there's a lot of funny stuff and serious, heartfelt, in-depth discussion.
Yeah, she talked about being a black mom and a parent and what that looks like in the community that she lives in, but also how it has structured a lot of her political views. We talk about the California recall election. She does a great job of explaining the process for those of us who are outside of the state. We talk about the candidate she's supporting, and we have a wonderful controlled rowdiness segment where Kira reveals to us that she secretly thinks that Gavin Newsom might be really good at this job. Listen and find out. Like, subscribe, ding the little bell so you get notifications whenever we have new videos and podcasts. Thank you guys for listening, and enjoy part 2.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star rating. Go ahead and hit the like button. You can always hit unlike later.
Thank you. Danley with us again today on these airwaves.
On our sweet, clean airwaves.
Is, gosh, the most charming.
The dimplest.
The cutest and fiercest guest we've ever had. She is a political commentator, comedian. She runs the Just Listen to Yourself podcast and is the editor-at-large at Red State. It is the fabulous, beautiful, the talented Miss Kira Davis. How are you, darling?
Thank you for that introduction. You guys are my favorites.
Well, see, we're getting that more and more. So we're really working hard on the intros, and we're just going to let the interview skills just go to
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you say after that.
So we've got a lot of stuff we want to get
starting with
into. Here we go.
I have some definitions because I of the two of us, I am less well read. Would you agree?
Sure.
Because you're always trying to get me to read things.
Yes.
How dare you? How very dare you?
What is an editor at large?
Oh, okay. This is a good question. I get this question a lot.
Oh, good.
Editor at large is a fancy title for somebody who is just goes out and does publicity for the page. I have editorial privileges, meaning that I am somebody's boss, and I do help with staffing issues, but mainly my main job is just to be out there talking to people, making people aware of our website and representing our website. It's kind of good gig.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that last time. I was like, don't be a dummy.
No,
you should know
nobody
this.
really
Now
knows.
that she,
I think it's a made-up term. It's kind of a made-up term.
But every term's a made-up term. At some point.
Yes.
So what it means is that Kira is our boss, and we should treat her thusly.
Right.
Yes.
That's exactly what it means, actually. I am the boss of everybody. Editor at large essentially is a term that means I am your boss. It's actually Latin. It's a Latin term.
And there's a lot of people at Red State. 'Cause I remember I was looking at the website, and there's a lot of almost said editors, but there's a lot of authors. Or,
a lot of
commentators.
writers.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go.
There's that word.
So talk to us a little bit about Red State, because that's not something we really got into in our last interview.
Red State is one of the largest conservative blogs in the country. It's been in existence for, I think, about 15 years. It kind of came about during the, or maybe a little bit earlier before the Tea Party days. It was started by a gentleman named Eric Erickson, who has since moved on to bigger and better things. But he started it as a way for, it really was a diary blog. It was a way for conservatives when media first started opening up to conservatives and right-wing commentators. Because that used to be really monopolized by mainstream media. He started it as a place where just regular people could come and maybe write down their thoughts. These were the days before Facebook even. So a lot of people didn't have a place to express their views that weren't, quote, mainstream media views. It morphed into a reporting site. We ended up getting involved in a lot of politics, supporting certain politicians, and it's just sort of grown since then. And now we've grown to one of the biggest blogs in the nation as on the right, and we're owned by Salem Media now.
Oh, very nice.
So
Salem.
We're corporate now. I shall not respond to that. Just in case anybody's watching.
We had a good friend who used to work for Salem Media, and then they sold out to idiot. And then they sold out to Cumulus.
Ah,
yeah, that's the radio side.
Yep.
That's a whole different beast, but it's a complicated industry actually. But so that's what I do, and I am really happy to have a home over there, to have a steady job, steady work, to be able to say the things that I want to say and be supported. And one of the things I'd love to say about Red State that I think I doubt it most people are aware of, but one of the things that I have been very conscious about as a conservative writer, as a Christian, as somebody who consumes media, I think there needs to be more minority representation on the right. I think that there need to be more writers of color, particularly because I'm Black. I'm really concerned with, Black representation. And because on the right, excuse me, we typically like to say things like, well, we're colorblind, or we don't look at people or hire based on how they look. It's easy to forget that there's a lot of people out there who you don't know exist because they've just never had the opportunity to show you that they exist. So while it may feel good to say, hey, I don't judge people based on color or pick people based on color, sometimes you do have to be deliberate about going out and finding those people because there's so few of them, right? Black people are only 13% of the population.
Yeah.
So imagine what percentage of those are writers. You have to be deliberate about going out and finding those people. So I told my bosses at Red State, look, I think we need different perspective on here. And even though you're conservative, if you are a minority, if you're Black, you have a totally different perspective than a lot of people. And it can add a layer to your coverage. So I want to go out and I want to deliberately recruit Black writers. And they were like, we love it. Go for it. And we now have the highest we have the most diversity of any conservative blog on the right now. I'm very proud to say that we have a growing stable of really intelligent, thought-provoking, and artistic Black writers. And I'm always looking for more. But yeah, so I just want to give a shout out to Salem and Red State for totally being a support on that. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about us. We don't brag on it or anything.
Right.
But I think it's kind of a big deal, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah,
it does make it does make sense that in America we have this wealth of different cultures and different perspectives, and we want to make sure to capture all of that. And you're not going to get that from looking at Daily Wire is a good one. They have Candace Owens that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's a little.
It.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's awesome.
It.
Yeah.
And I know that I think a lot of conservatives feel uncomfortable, and I get a lot of pushback on the site for it sometimes, but I don't care. I know a lot of conservatives feel like you're not judging people by the content of their character. You're judging people by how they look. It's sort of true that how you look is a factor in me wanting to go out and deliberately recruit you. But here's the thing. I think what a lot of white conservatives don't understand is that your race can change your perspective on things.
Oh, absolutely.
I as a Black mother, I have a lot in common with every other mother of every other race, but there are some things that are very specific to my community and to the conversations I have with my children. And I don't begrudge white conservatives for not mentioning these things. They don't know these things. Why would you know these things? How would you know these things? These are not your perspective. I can't speak from the point of view of somebody who lives in Alaska, even though we might share conservative values. I've never even been to Alaska, so that it just shifts. It's just a minor shift, an ever slight shift in the perspective and the stories that bubble up to the top, right? This is your perspective will even affect the stories that you go after, the stories that you're interested in. I find my writers are really interested in stories that concentrate on what the GOP is doing in inner city areas, that other people, not because they're prejudiced, simply because they don't think like that. They rarely think about inner city communities outside of maybe what's happening on the south side of Chicago. They wouldn't even think to go pursue those stories. So those are the little shifts that purposefully diversifying your staff, the people around you can do. And I think it only makes us better.
Yeah, and I think that fits in a lot with what the original newspapers found out, right? That, like the New York Times, for instance, when they were the paper of record for the United States, one of the things that they did, especially in their sports department, was that they sent beat writers to each of the cities, or they found a beat writer in each of those cities because they had a vested interest and they knew the way that the people in that area talked. They used the right lingo. They had a relationship with the players in the community, so they knew when a big win happened or a big loss happened. And so we can see that, and we recognize it in areas like sports. We recognize it in areas like fashion and things like that. Why do you think it is that it's taken us so long to make that same sort of representation the standard within the political fields?
I think people just feel like they're being pulled to the left on the issue just because of the rhetoric surrounding race. And so they don't really put a lot of thought into it. I understand the reflex. I really do. But I think it's important to put a little bit of thought into why we would. And again, like, I agree. I don't want to go out and just be like, hey, you're a Black person, come on board. That's not the process.
Right.
But it is like, I've got my eye open for these people. I want to nurture these people. I don't think people understand how difficult it is to be seen on the right as a Black person.
Yeah.
No one wants to hear that because they think it means we're accusing the right of racism. That's not it. But there are a lot of white people on the right, especially in the punditry field. And we all tend to hire our friends and family. That's just, we call it nepotism, but I think that's how most people get their jobs.
Thanks, Andrew Jackson.
Knowing somebody. Is knowing somebody. And a lot of white conservatives don't intimately know a lot of Black people. And so it's not a fact of you're purposefully avoiding us. You don't know we're here. And so, but I do, because I'm Black and I have a big network of Black family and Black friends and Black artist friends. And that is a direct result of my race and the people who surround me every day. So it isn't an issue of wanting us to become woke or anything like that. It's wanting us to recognize that while we share the same political or even spiritual values, our perspective on life is very different. And that's okay. In fact, that's a good thing. We should be reminding people that this is a diverse ideology and that it extends beyond the color of your skin, your religion, or your ethnicity. We have core values, and then we take those core values and we apply them to our individual situations. That's very American to me.
Yeah, and you can see that kind of in social media. Like, even though we don't often see it in the mainstream conservative media, we're starting to see it a lot on social media. If you look at the Instagram and the Facebook accounts, even some of the YouTube accounts of guys like Joel Patrick and David Harris Jr., the very funny, albeit abrasive Hodge twins. You've got the very outspoken ladies like Diamond and Silk that are all, conservative people of color, but they they have talked, as you just did, about the risk of sort of coming out as conservative, and that it was odd for them in their friend groups and within their families, but now that's kind of the way that they've made their living. We're starting to see that with some of the things that are going on in the California elections, which we want to talk to you a little bit about. The most recent being an LA Times article about Larry Elder saying that he was the black face of white supremacy. Yeah. So like how do things like that, does that affect the pool that you're able to pull from? Because there are black conservatives that are seeing, those the people on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube come under fire, but now they're also seeing it from major media sources. Is that something that makes it more difficult for you guys to hire?
Sure, it is, because you're asking people to put a lot at risk, put a lot of social credibility at risk, and it can have a tamping effect, which I think is the purpose of stories like that about Larry, which he beat. By the way, do not take anything that comes out of they have a great entertainment section.
Oh, for
Read
sure.
that. Yeah, they have a really great. Do not take anything else seriously out of the LA Times. They were bought and paid for long ago. In fact, we just hired a cartoonist, Jim Thompson, who used to work for the LA Times. He had to leave because he did sports cartooning, but they didn't like the conservative tone of his sports cartooning. He didn't do political cartooning. He just wasn't being woke enough.
It just wasn't bashing people over the head.
That's right. And so they were like, this isn't really working out. And I think he eventually just ended up leaving rather than causing the big fight that I think they were trying to get to. I think they wanted him to go. Yeah. And so I clearly don't have enough. So we have him over at Red State now. He's a great cartoonist. Jim Thompson is his name. His series is Code Red. It's excellent. He's brilliant. But yeah, you can't take the LA Times seriously. They've been bought and paid for long ago.
Right.
I didn't even give that article about Larry a second thought. And by the polls, it didn't look like most people did either. But yeah, it can have a chilling effect. It is difficult to go and to find those people, because not only are you asking them to maybe join a career that they hadn't thought about, and then training them to do something new with that, but also you're asking them to out themselves with family and friends. And these days it's so vitriolic, people will just end their complete association with you.
Good word.
For this stuff.
Vitriol.
Ick.
We love that word.
I took the base version of the word. What is something you had mentioned earlier on, that as a black mother that you have taught your sons, or you've said things that we would have no concept of? What are some, or at least no direct experience with? What are some of? Do you have any examples of those?
Yes. So we live in a hoity-toity suburban community now in Southern California.
Those are the best kind.
Yes, it is the best kind, honestly. Like our biggest issue is like somebody wanted to call the cops the other day because a dog keeps pooping on their lawn, and they're like, "Should we call the cops?"
Those aren't real problems.
Issue for the police, lady. but yes. So I'll give you two examples. I have a son and a daughter. My son, we have a little pool, like a community pool, gated clubhouse pool down the street. And he and his friends will often go down there to hit the vending machines, because I'm not going to take them to the store. So they'll walk down there and pay $5 for a candy bar in the vending machines, but they'll forget their key card. Every community member has a key card to get you in there, and they'll forget it. So they climb the fence, and they do it at night. So one day when my son came home and told me he did that, I told him, look, you have to understand that your white friend going over that wall looks different to the people in our community than you going over that wall. They might not perceive it as a difference, but there is something subconscious that a lot of times, especially in communities like this, people will respond to, right? So I'm not saying it would happen. I'm not saying he'd ever run into problems. He never has, and maybe he never will. But it is a conversation we had to have with him about what people looking at you who don't know who you are and don't know you belong in this community, what they will think of you going over that fence versus your blonde, blue-eyed best friend going over that fence. The other example is this was a bit heartbreaking recently that we dealt with in our house. My daughter is 14 and she babysits in the neighborhood, and she was going to a new person's house down the street, and she got the wrong house. And so she knocked on the door and she peeked in the window, and then realized, oh, this is the wrong house. It's next door, and went there. Well, that person posted her video on the Ring app and said, you guys, look, this looks like a shady person. Watch out for this person in our neighborhood. She was snooping around and peeking in the window. And I don't have the Ring app. One of my neighbors pointed it out to me, and my daughter found it also and was devastated. And so I was having neighbors go on there and tell this person, this is a child. Take this video down. She was lost. She wasn't like camping out in your house looking. And the person, I guess, didn't want to admit that they were wrong. So they started erasing the comments that people were saying, this is a child. This is a teenager. You can't have this. And my one neighbor across the street went nuts. She was like, she's been here longer than you have. She's a part of this. Going off. She was going off. I'm like, calm down. She was ready to go over there with pitchforks. But we went down to the place. They didn't come to the door. They didn't respond to us at all. We wanted to have a conversation. I wanted them to take the video down, which we had to go through the Ring app eventually, just to get the Ring app to take it down on the basis of child exploitation. Mm-hmm. So the people did not voluntarily take it down. Ring app took it down. And then I did go leave a message with these people. And I think it's the best I can do without starting a flame war. But I said, look, my daughter is the only Black person in this neighborhood. And she walks around the neighborhood a lot by herself, or she walks the dog a lot. She's often around the neighborhood. And now you've identified her as a person of interest. And so the people who may not have seen the corrections on your post now have my daughter's face in their mind as someone they should be suspicious of. Mm-hmm. So she's in the neighborhood that she's lived her whole life. And now she could be in danger of being marked as a, quote, suspicious person because she has some unique identifications for this area. So stuff like that we have to deal with that maybe other people don't even think about as a problem.
And she ended that message with, don't make me call my family from Pennsylvania.
And you never heard back from the neighbor?
Never heard back.
Wow.
That's very disappointing.
Never heard back. I don't know. It would be fun if the neighbor was a fan of this podcast, but I'll just say I've been to their house more than a few times to see if I could catch them on the way out.
Californians and hoity-toity areas.
But I've dealt with a similar situation in this neighborhood before, many years ago when we first moved in. And what I learned from that situation is that grace, you have to lead with grace. I was very angry, which is a natural reaction, I think. But I think I did what I could. And to do anything else would be to really escalate the situation. And I don't think that that's necessary. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. But these are things that, my neighbor across the street who was so angry, she was like, I would never think to have to deal with this with my children, and when I pointed out to her that it's not just an issue of maybe them being slightly bigoted or racist looking at the picture, but it's also an issue of her walking around this neighborhood now by herself and being identified as someone who's, quote, shady. And she was like, wow, I never even thought about that.
Yeah. Could she? Yeah. That is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
My mind immediately starts going to a whole bunch of things that are very sad.
Yeah.
But again, like you said, that I don't want to even get into it.
It's a tricky topic, and it's one of those that, especially where a child is concerned.
And I couldn't imagine my son being in that situation.
Right.
My daughter was devastated.
And how angry I would be.
She was on the internet. Yeah. She was on the internet. And to her, that's that is the biggest thing. She was devastated. I think that was the hardest thing, is that she was so embarrassed and she didn't do anything wrong,
Yeah. So as a mom, how do you deal with, your kid being heartbroken like that, outside of all the things you had to do in order to get the situation remedied? Now that you're back home, right? How do you talk to Kira Jr.?
Kira Jr. is Ruby. And it's just loving on her. Just being like, I'm sorry, but this is a lesson. You will face this, and you can choose to be angry, and you can choose to be ashamed, or you can choose grace. And just know, we really reiterated to her, like, this is not your fault. This is their fault. Yep. This is their problem. You did nothing wrong. There's nobody who knows about the situation, who knows us, that thinks you did anything wrong. these people were the ones who were wrong, and they didn't even have the maturity to admit that they were wrong. So, and this is just a life lesson. If you can learn to move on, and choose not to treat people the way they deserve to be treated, which is what grace is, you'll be stronger and better for this in your life. So just use them as lessons.
Kira, will you do some mom clinics? Like my wife and I are starting to think about like, hey, this is going to be the next step to starting our family. Just let me know what the one-to-one for the parent coaching for us will be, so that we can sit down and be like, all right, when our kid is 13 and looks like me and has a similar disposition
is a jerk
towards devilry and jerkiness. Yeah. Teach me how to have grace with him instead of wanting to hang him upside down.
Okay.
Recall. Grace is
recall.
Free. I have good news for you though. Grace is free.
That's true.
Is.
That's true. Unless you're Catholic.
What are those things called that you had to buy in the medieval ages?
The ones that like got you out of years of purgatory.
The
papal somethings.
It was like a cloth, a piece of Peter's robe.
It was heretical. So we're gonna.
I'm gonna look it up while you move
shift. On. We want to talk to you about the California recall elections, because we've seen a ton of information about it. And being in Texas, all we're getting is secondhand information from mostly TikTok. So we need you to set us straight. We know that you are supporting a candidate. We've got lots of lovely pictures on your Twitter of you on stage with. How do you say his last name? His first name is obviously
Kylie.
Kevin. Kylie.
Indulgences.
Indulgences. There you go. Papal indulgences.
Yeah.
So you've been supporting Kevin Kiley. Talk to those of us who are removed from everything that's happening in the state. Talk to us a little bit about what the process is like for the recall elections and what your role in it has been supporting a candidate.
And do you like TikTok?
I mean, I think I would like it if I understood how to use it.
Got it.
I hate it.
I know. I kind of want to get on there because there is a lot of social media value in it. There's a huge political sphere on TikTok that my neighbor across the street is much younger than me, and so she's always educating me on these things. And she's like, "You need to get on TikTok. Look, this is the person I follow." And there's actually a big conservative presence on TikTok.
Yeah, there is
as well. I think because the Chinese own TikTok and they don't really censor a lot. So
on TikTok, you just have to raise your arms and do this, and you get 300,000 likes.
I know, that's what I'm saying. I'm like, no, I don't know a lot about TikTok.
Okay, go back to your question. I'm done derailing.
Okay, recall election. What's going on with the recall election, and what's it been like supporting Kevin during the election?
Okay, so let's start with this recall election, because I think this is an important concept to explain to people from outside the state. It's a little confusing. It's not like a regular election. And because it happens so rarely, even most people inside of California don't know how the recall mechanics work. So here is how a recall in California works. You have 2 questions. That's it. 2 questions on the ballot. First question, do you vote to recall Governor Gavin Newsom from the office of governor? Yes or no? It's a yes or no question. If the yeses win, you go to the second question, which is, okay, of these people, who would you prefer to replace him? And then whoever has the most votes on question number 2 automatically replaces him. So this isn't a head-to-head election. He's not running against Larry Elder or any conservative. He's running against himself. The only question that matters is number 1, yes or no. If he loses that by the yeses winning, then we just pick whoever has the most vote, But it could be if nobody, ostensibly, if nobody voted for anyone on question number 2, and let's just say for some weird reason that 3 Californians wrote in Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog is the governor.
That's what you're rooting for.
Gonzo is now transgender, so maybe that fits better in California.
Leave that out of this.
So that it's not. I know there's a lot of people out there who are looking at our field. A lot of conservatives were disappointed with Caitlyn Jenner. And by the way, Jenner is just in there Caitlyn Jenner is looking for a reality show, and that's about it. But it's not unusual to have this kind of celebrity freak show in our election process. We've got a porn star running. She runs every election. Mary Carey is her name. We've had celebrities run. We have TikTok stars running. Like, it's a free for all in the Golden State. It's not unusual.
Is Jenna Marbles running?
I don't know who's Jenna Marbles.
She's fantastic. But go ahead.
She's somebody that hasn't been relevant in about 5 years.
She's not on TikTok that I'm aware, so it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay. So that is the recall thing. So there's a lot of people who are saying, the Republicans can't get it together in California. They can't even put up a good candidate against Gavin Newsom. There's no one running against Gavin Newsom. Mm-hmm. Gavin Newsom is running against himself. This is why you're seeing him out there giving strange interviews and being salty, and because he knows he's losing in the polls. The only way Newsom wins this recall, survives this recall, is going to be cheating. That's going to be the only reason.
Yeah, he's running against his reputation, which is not good for Governor Goodhair.
Which is what he's done.
Yeah, yeah. So we've seen a lot of stuff about mail-in ballots in the recall election. We know that that's been a hot button issue. We can't use the F word on this podcast, which is not what you think it is. It's FRAUD. We can't say that.
We can't say it at Red State either.
Yeah. So there's a video that's going around, and
just call
and
it,
a theory
call
that's
it
making election frogs. So
election frogs are a big issue.
Yeah, election frog is a big issue. So, but there's one particular video that's going around that we've seen circulated, and it has to do with the mail-in ballots. And if you fold the mail-in ballot the way that it comes after you check the box, it will, in a really weird window, show whether or not you voted yes or no on the first item, which is, do you recall Governor Gavin Newsom? Have you seen anything about this? Are you aware?
Yeah, there's some issues with the fold too, where Larry Elder's name is on the fold, and that might affect like the automatic counting. But from what we've been able to tell, that we have a huge contingent of California writers over at Red State, so we've been monitoring this. I think that's a little bit of hysteria. I don't think that, and there is a group here in California called the Election Integrity Project, which is actively working to shore up the election process. I don't know all of the details of what they plan to be doing, but a few things they're doing is clearing the voting rolls, making sure they have observers, stuff like that. We've had to sue. Of course, the state is not going to clear the voter rolls without suing. So it's a constant lawsuits, but they are doing that. So there are people on the ground here. I think the California GOP is starting to activate a little bit more than they have in the past, seeing that this recall could actually be a success. They are actually committed to working within the legal boundaries to monitor our election counting. Now, that doesn't mean that election frogs are going to be put down for good.
Yes.
With a hard G.
Frogs.
Just in case subtitles get it wrong.
But there are concerns, of course, about extra ballots. I mean, now every single Californian gets a ballot now, whether you want it or not. I have 3 sitting in my house right now. I had 5 for the 2020 election. There's only 3 voters in this house.
Really?
There's massive, and what happens to those extra ballots? And you know what I mean? When people don't use them. I don't use my mail-in ballot. I go in the day of and I vote in person like a real American.
Good job.
But I don't use mail-in ballots. Now, I shred my ballots, but how many people think to shred those ballots? You just throw them away and you don't think, but there are people who will dig through your trash for those extra ballots.
I'd probably throw it away.
That's a mom move. Shredding mail. That's such a mom thing.
When it comes to voting, like as a Californian, I hate following the rules because in California, if you follow the rules, all you get is more rules. So I don't typically follow the rules here anymore. I'm done with that. But voting, I take very, very seriously. Something my mom instilled, my liberal mom up in Canada instilled in me from a child. Like, this is a very precious right that you have. Take it very seriously. So in the 2020 elections, my husband was like, okay, I filled in my ballot. Can you just drop it off for me at the ballot box? I'm like, no, I can't. That's illegal. You have to drop it off at the ballot box. He's like, but you're going that way. Like, then I have to leave work. I'm like, oh, well, I can't help you out.
I think you have a Texan spirit.
I do too.
I think so too.
That's absolutely amazing. All right, so we've discussed the nuttiness of the process, and that it's going to be yes or no on Gavin, and then whoever
Kermit
gets,
the Frog.
Yeah, and then Kermit the Frog and his election frog will win. Talk to us about the candidate that you're supporting, about Kevin Kiley a little bit, and why he's got your support in particular.
I'd love to talk about Kevin Kiley. I have never stumped for a politician ever in my life, but a few very crazy things have happened, believe it or not, by our standards, even here in California in the last 2 years. So one was a battle we were having that we lost regarding our sex ed curriculum, which was developed by the LGBT group HRC, and is very, very, very sexually explicit with I don't even know what I can say on your show. I mean, that's how explicit it is.
You can say, you can say anything. We've actually had Professor Nancy Piercy on to talk to us about this specifically, and we've got Dr. Carl Truman coming on, I believe, in September, talking about how the modern self has put us in this situation. So
are you talking about some of the things that, like, I think New York had that, where they talked about
New York had the one that was like teaching kindergartners how to masturbate.
Okay,
that's what we have.
That was the word.
Oh, really? You guys have that type of curriculum as well?
Oh, wow.
And
what is the point of that? I don't understand.
It's activism. It's activism. The LGBT rights groups write our legislation. It's just activism is all it is. It is. I mean, if we want to take it deeper to like a spiritual battle, like the idea of like trying to eliminate the concept we have of created differences, created roles in society, of biology, created biology. It's an insidious. Because one of the things that they insert into these curriculum is to usurp parental rights, so that you can't opt out of these things, and it makes it legal for them to be secretive about when they're teaching your kids these things, or teachers don't have to report gender dysphoria or sexual assaults that may involve a quote trans kid. Teachers aren't obligated to report those things because they're only obligated to support this agenda. It is totally agenda driven. It is parents overwhelmingly hated this, particularly in the immigrant community. And that fight was painful to watch, because I went to parent-teacher meetings in largely Hispanic districts where they were just treated like crap. They were treated so poorly by the people that are supposed to represent them, the Democrat, liberal, left. They were treated like crap because these people are traditional people. A lot of they're highly religious, very conservative in social values, right? And it was horrific, some of the stuff that they were up against from the left. We lost that battle. The other thing that happened was AB 5, which is a bill that makes freelancing basically illegal. It was a union bill backed by the unions, and it requires this, what we call an ABC test, business to business test. Basically, long and the short of it is, you need to be a W-2 employee or you're being exploited. That was the...
Oh my gosh.
Uber Lyft law that you guys have probably heard about. It's called the Uber Lyft law. It was meant to get at Uber and Lyft because they were mad at Uber and Lyft about their wonderful contracting business. They were mad. So it was meant to get them, but it was so poorly written that it got every freelancer. Uber and Lyft had enough money to ignore it and then put a proposition on the ballot that passed overwhelmingly to get out from under it. By the way, a judge in California ruled yesterday that Prop 22 is illegal. So we got to go back to the board to fight that. The people voted for Prop 22. A judge struck it down yesterday. It's been the law for 2 years. I can't even explain the insanity that's going on here. So freelancers, liberal, this is why the recall happened. Democrats were losing their jobs, right? Now you're not just talking about, these are just religious conservative parents who don't want sex ed in their school. Now you're talking about opera singers, theater owners. You can't make a W-2 employee out of a DJ. A DJ is literally a gig job. DJs losing their jobs. Festivals have had to close. LA Opera House had to stop doing opera last year. There's a children's theater in LA that's been open for 45 years. It brings theater to inner city schools. They had to close because of this law. People just losing gigs left and right. Writers. This was a big deal for us. We were fighting it as well. And we lost. We had to come up with other legal wranglings to keep working in this state. I have to be an LLC to work in this state as a freelance writer now, which means I am triple taxed. I'm taxed $800 a year to have an LLC in California. I'm taxed as an employee of myself, and I'm taxed as an employer of myself.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yes. It's become untenable. So Kevin Kiley is an assemblyman in our legislature from the 6th District of California up north. It happens to be Gavin Newsom's district. And he has been the lone voice in the assembly fighting against this. He was the one person who put these stories together about who was being affected by AB 5. By the way, I want y'all to know AB 5 is not a California thing. It is now a national thing. It is now sitting in the Senate waiting to be approved. And they couldn't get it past Cinema and Manchin, so they stuck it into the infrastructure bill. So if this becomes law of the land, you guys, it usurps your right to work. You will no longer be able to contract. You will have to be somebody's employee.
Well, that's not going to work here.
No. And there's, we've seen a shift, as you were talking about, especially in the entertainment industry over the last couple of years. It had kind of dispersed in the previous 10. We saw a lot more work coming to places like Austin, a lot of it that was going to Atlanta. Because Georgia's, movie scene, but now the flood of people to Texas, to Florida, and states where these kind of things don't exist and where there's no state tax, they're being overwhelmed by workers that were 1099 because they can. But if PRO Act passes,
there's nowhere for you to go.
Good grief!
That it's national law. Now, I do believe, because it is anti-constitutional, I do believe it'll face many challenges. But in the meantime, like we're here in California, in the meantime, you're languishing under it. And it's killed free expression here. It's killed, which I think was part of the purpose. It's killed the freedom to work. It's a union-backed bill. Unions have the lowest membership currently that they've had in their history, so they're struggling, right? Unions are a outfit of the old, right? That's old America, and the concept of work and earning has improved and changed over the last 20 to 30 years.
Yeah.
Unions have been rendered useless in many cases. We don't need them. We can advocate for ourselves because we can contract. We can make our own decisions when and where we want to work. So they're really struggling. And this is actually a global movement. Italy just passed a version of the PRO Act. France has a version of the PRO Act. I mean, it's literally the same thing. It is a global push to go country by country and codify union membership into the constitutions of different countries. Wow. Yeah. It's very insidious. So I want everybody to know that this thing exists, and, write your senator. That will help. And it is helping. Write to your senator and tell them that just look up the PRO Act, you'll find a bunch of stuff on it. It'll say it's pro workers, but it's anti-worker. And write your senator and say, you don't want this. It will help. But back to Assemblyman Kiley. He's been the only person sounding the alarm on this. He's been the guy. He has introduced repeal bill after repeal bill in the legislature. They've all, of course, been shot down because we have one party rule basically in the state. But he's never stopped. He keeps reintroducing them. Kevin's also a lawyer. He's trained in civil rights defenses. And he and another representative, James Gallagher, sued the state to regain our right to go back to worship, to go back to church this past year over COVID restrictions. He's also sued the governor 4 times, to no effect yet, but he doesn't have any intention of stopping, to relinquish his emergency powers. It's been a year and a half. He still has emergency powers in the state.
Oh, wow.
So he's sued Newsom to have to relinquish those. He has plans to lift any mask mandates and vax mandates in the state if he wins. He has fought for school choice, parental choice. And actually, I think this is a great idea. And this is one thing that Kevin thinks is a great sort of silver lining of COVID mandates in schools, is that, okay, we can agree to disagree on how to treat the children in schools regarding COVID. Why don't we let the money follow the kid instead of forcing all the kids into public school? And that way, if you want your kid in a school where everyone is masked, you can be in that school. But if you want your kid in a school where they can breathe freely during the day, you can take that funding with you and go to a charter school or go to a private school. So this is actually a great time to be pushing for school choice, which Kevin is in favor of. Overall, I would say I support Kevin Kiley, even though he's not a well-known name among people who don't follow California politics. I want to support Kevin Kiley because I believe that he has the track record. He's been fighting for this state, and I've seen it with my own eyes. So I typically don't get involved in races, but this guy's the real deal. And when you hear him talk, he's very persuasive. He's not just personality. He has real plans to change the state in a way that I think could be measurable for both sides of this ideological fence that we're always straddling here in California. I think for Democrats and for Republicans, there could be measurable advancements with this guy as governor. However, as you guys know, there's a lot of other people on that.
Yeah, no kidding. I've been really intrigued by Kevin Kiley because he's shown up in your Twitter feed, because I've never seen you do anything like this before. And seeing campaign pictures of Kira Davis, I'm like, what?
That's all I need to know.
Yeah, obviously, like if I was in California, like just by association, he's getting my vote. But I think that that's really, really interesting, and I always am curious when somebody like you, who has been very, I'm trying to think of the right way to put it. You've been very adamant about preserving your journalistic integrity. You're not, you haven't thrown in with anybody. You do come from a conservative worldview and perspective, and you make that known. But you also have always been very fair and balanced. So to see you supporting a candidate, I was like, all right, either this guy is the real deal, or he's got like some incredible blackmail on Kira, and we want to give her the opportunity on our show to come out from under it.
He is totally grassroots. He is totally grassroots, almost exclusively. In fact, we organized an event for him in Simi Valley last night, which I was honored to host. And that was just simply a group of women who were like, this guy needs help. We're jumping out. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's doing it. But we just really believe in his message. And even people there, once people hear him speak, they go, oh yeah, this is the guy. The thing is that there are a couple of other big names, and let's not pretend they don't exist. So there's Caitlyn Jenner here. I don't think we need to worry about Caitlyn Jenner.
That's who's getting Carrie Pomeroli's vote, because she wants stuff for her comedy act and for her new Hallmark movie.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's fair. I can't begrudge that vote. But the other big name, we don't need to worry about Caitlyn Jenner. Honestly, people, that Caitlyn's already dropping off the list.
Right.
Larry Elder is the big name. He's polling the highest so far in our polls. I don't know how reliable the polls are at this point, but he polls very high because he has very high recognition among conservative circles. He doesn't have the same recognition among Democrat circles, but he is polling high. I love, a lot of people ask me, why am I not supporting Larry? Like, I do support Larry. Larry was the first radio show I ever did as a political pundit a decade ago. He was the first person to have me on the airwaves. So I have a soft spot for Larry. I love him as a pundit, and it sure would be fun to have Larry Elder as governor.
Oh,
no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But Larry is an entertainer. And California has some deeper problems than I think can be addressed by someone who just is very intelligent and has some really good cutting views on politics. I need someone who can go in there, because here's the other thing people don't know. Whoever wins the election in 2 weeks, you've got 1 year till the next election. 1 year. So you have to be able to go in there and start changing stuff day one. And I think Kevin can do that. I don't think Larry has a good enough handle on the process of the California legislature to do that. But that being said, I'm not anti-Larry Elder. This is my guy, Kevin Kiley. I think he could be a really great leader for California.
Do you see Kiley running in 2022?
Yes, I do.
And you know what scares me about everything that Kira said? Is she said there was a group of women that got together and said, this guy needs help. And that's always a terrifying thing, because a group of women that feel like there's a boy that needs help can move mountains in order to help out whatever sweet little guy they've thrown their lot in with.
True.
Yeah.
You should have seen my friend Roxanne, who was really instrumental in getting all this together. She picked him up at the airport. She was like, Kira, he needs new shirts. He doesn't have enough colors in his shirts. Like,
That's exactly, before I got married, that's what happened to me whenever I was the pastor, is that all the old ladies came up to me and they were like, listen, we need to get you some help. And so here's what we're doing. This one's going to take you shopping. This one's putting together a recipe book for you. And so it's like, oh my goodness. But they're awesome. And a group full of women that feel like change needs to happen.
It's a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. I want to talk about a couple other things. I know we don't have you for very much longer. Talk to us a little bit about not just the stuff that's going on with Just Listen to Yourself, but you've got some services like your locals page and the list service with Kira Davis, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with. I've only recently become acquainted with it here within the last couple of weeks. So talk to us about those two things, where people can pay to get some more of your content.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because before we went to air, we were kind of talking about this concept of like getting paid to do the work that we do, and how does this work? So I'll start with what these things are. List Service is my Red State podcast. It's for Red State VIP subscribers. You can go to Red State, click on the VIP icon on the top, and if you subscribe, you get a discount to all kinds of VIP content from across the spectrum of websites we have in the family. We're part of the Town Hall Media family. So we've got Bearing Arms, we've got Hot Air, Twitchy, Town Hall, of course, and Red State and PJ Media. And you've got personalities like Katie Pavlich and Guy Benson and Larry O'Connor. Oh, cool. And so you can get access to like exclusive content from them. Use my code Kira and you'll get 25% off, by the way. But that being said, my other page is a locals page. Locals is Dave Rubin's social media site that he set up with some partners when he started getting banned from YouTube and demonetized from YouTube. Locals is like a Patreon type thing where you can go, you can sign up a subscription to your favorite personalities, and then you have access to whatever bonus content, personal content. I post a lot of just personal content that I wouldn't feel comfortable posting in the regular media space. And then we have book club, we have Zoom meetings, we chat. I did my first live show last month in Cleveland, and some of my fans came up to see that. So that's davisnation.locals.com if you want to get on there. Now, a lot of people will say, there are a lot of people, particularly on the conservative side, who feel uncomfortable about paying money for content. And I get that. A lot of people will say, this feels like a money grab. We all need, first of all, what we do, you guys know that what we do is not easy. These guys don't just sit down at their mics and then boom, this all happens. There is preparation involved. There's editing involved. There's software issues involved. The money, what they pay for their mics, their software programs, it's a labor of love. So you may be enjoying this show, but I don't think a lot of people have a concept of what the time that it costs you to put into this stuff. So you may love these voices, but these voices have to make money somehow, so we do need some sort of support because we have to eat too. This isn't a hobby. This is a job. And but the other thing is that after January, a lot of us started getting censored. At Red State, the censors are I have to be careful about what I say even about it, because we could even get dinged for me talking about it outside of Red State. But we've been having a lot of issue with Facebook and Twitter censors. There are some words that we can't even say.
Like frog.
Like frog.
Yeah.
That will get our page banned. And you may feel like, well, just stand up to them. But when they own your 35% of our traffic comes from Facebook, 25% comes from Twitter. We have 35 writers that all need employment. Where do they go? There's no other outlet that they go to. It's not like, if we close, that's it. We're gone. There's no alternative. So part of the way we keep ourselves safe from that type of censorship is we have paid sides, so we can put a lot behind the paywall. that we couldn't put on the front page. Because a lot of media outlets won't have access to that, but also we don't need them to share the things because you're already paying for it. We don't need those shares and those clicks to have the story go far, right?
Yeah.
You're paying for the content. That also keeps us ad free. Advertisers are also part of the problem. If you piss off your advertiser, that could be hundreds of or thousands of dollars a month in revenue that gets taken from you. That's happened to me personally in the past. I lost a big sponsor not speaking correctly about the Me Too movement, and so the danger out there is real. We're not trying to just be on the grift and make as much money as possible. We're trying to keep our voices safe, and we're also trying to feed our families while we be these voices for you that you can't be in your own community or your own house or on your own social media for whatever reasons. So when somebody's asking you to pay for content, it's generally not because they're greedy. It's because they're trying to protect their voice so you can have more of it.
I think that's a great point, and I cannot say enough good things about Kira as a commentator, as a journalist, but also just her very down-to-earth style and the podcast we have absolutely loved. We listen to your podcast often and crack up because we also have theories about aliens.
Okay. My neighbor's coming back on, and he's been highly requested to return. His wife is she's like, Kira, he thinks that he's a big podcast star now, please.
Well, also the stuff that you do, like with your father-in-law, where your father-in-law is, from everything that we've heard on the podcast, is not just a very intelligent guy, but he's also very loving, very caring. The way that y'all's relationship is filled with both affection and truth is one of those things that I think is an incredible thing. And personally, it's one of those that, like, I aspire to have that kind of relationship with not just my friends, but other family members, where we can be loving, but we can also talk about things that are difficult, things that we may or may not agree on, in a way that shows that we have care and grace for one another, yet that there are moments of tension and friction within that. And you guys just having that type of relationship, bringing it on air, I think gives a lot of people hope. And it's something that I've highly recommended to a lot of the families in our church who, I just can't talk to my dad about, this or that because we disagree on some stuff. And I'm like, you know what, listen to Kira and her father-in-law talk. Because while they agree on a lot of things, the approach that you take and the way that you discuss things, the respect that's there is just such a very cool thing. And I think it sets a great example for other people. And so I appreciate everything that you're doing. We absolutely love you.
Well, he's the reason I'm a conservative.
Really?
That's why you have he is the reason I'm a conservative. I was a liberal when I married his son, who is a conservative guy, but very apolitical.
Yeah.
But my father-in-law was the first black man I ever met who called himself a conservative out loud and a Republican. And I've always been political. So he would challenge my ideas. He would challenge me to think about things. And just over the years and plus the work that we were doing together in our community, he brought me on board one of our ministries, and that changed a lot about how I looked at policy and stuff like that. So I love him. I love talking to him because he has such wisdom with grace. And that's what persuaded me. And so it wasn't like some hardcore, like, you're an idiot because you think this way. He let me say the wrong things. He let me give the wrong opinions, and he didn't judge me for them. He gave me the grace and the space to work through them. And I think a lot of times we stop people before they're about to do the work. Yeah. We stop them because we don't like what they said, or we don't like the way they said it. It was just offensive. Oh, you're hopeless. We stop there, but sometimes we just need to back up, say your piece, and then back off and let them do their own work. Because a lot of people, they do embrace reason, but what puts them off is emotion. So my father-in-law has been a great example to me. And also, if I just may, before we go, my father and mother-in-law, I have the best in-laws in the world. They really are. They are. You said that you hope to be that type of example. when I look at my in-laws, I think that's the kind of mother-in-law and father-in-law I want to be to my kids. They have never been anything but completely open to me. They have, I can remember my mother-in-law saying when I came on board the family, like, this is your husband now. This is not my son. This is your husband. And we lived next door to each other. So that could have gotten fairly weird. But my mother, she never came over without calling first. She never intruded. She always accepted my privacy and my primacy in my own home, and she always respected that, but gave advice where it was needed. And she said to me, Kira, I always told my sons that I love you. So whoever you bring home, I will love that person. And that's how I want to be, because I know our kids can bring home all kinds of crazy people.
Strays.
And some of them might not even, they really might put you off.
Yeah.
But I genuinely believe that you can change the nature of a relationship by leading with grace. And I don't think there's enough in-laws out there that take that approach. It's hard, especially if you think this person's not good for my kid. Well, this person is with your kid. So find a way to love that person. And you might find they change because of who you are. I changed because of who my in-laws were. So to me, my father-in-law is really like one of my best friends. He is one of my greatest confidants. I still call him to this day. If I have a question or if I'm scared or if I'm upset, like, I'm talking to my father, and I'm not
awesome.
like calling up my husband. I'm calling up his dad, and he's my biggest fan. He's my biggest fan. So I love my father-in-law so much, and he's been such a wonderful influence. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to chat about him a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's one of that series. I think it was 3 episodes. Is one of my favorites that you've done. I'm like, this is awesome. This is what families should be doing.
Yeah.
Well, we end all of our episodes with a segment called Controlled Rowdiness. We know we've put you through the pace on this before. Last time we talked about Hallmark movies. This time, though, we're going to throw it with some off-the-cuff questions just to answer with the first thing that comes to your head. Daly, I'm going to let you start this out.
Okay. So, assuming that the recall passes and Gavin is recalled, Gavin Newsom, what do you think is his most likely next job? Game show host, MeUndies underwear model, or mass erotic ebook plagiarist?
Ooh,
or you can write in your own.
These are 3 really good. I think game show host. Jeopardy's looking for a new host, and he's got the hair.
He's slick.
He's slick, and he's got that smile, that toothy politician smile. Yeah, I think he could be a good game show host. In fact, you guys, I don't know if you guys had the chance to see this, but one of the crazy things we're doing to encourage people to get vaccinated is a lottery. You can get $1 million. You can win $1 million. You win $1 million.
I've seen that.
Yes. And so the first pick that he announced, it was like a game show. He had a wheel of fortune behind him, and it was like all this gold LeMay stuff. And I mean, it was just, go look it up. It was
the governor spinning the wheel.
Do you get like an entry for each shot? Because like that would make me not want to take the Johnson and Johnson. Like I'd want to need the Pfizer and the Moderna.
You get the entry.
Half of.
You do get the entry after your second shot or your first of Johnson or
oh my gosh.
And I keep
That's amazing.
I did get vaccinated, and after the second shot, like they won't stop texting me. They keep telling me I'm in this lottery. I'm like, don't text me unless you have money for me.
Yeah. And
that's amazing.
Pfizer has been FDA approved.
Oh, congratulations to Pfizer.
Yeah, as of I believe today.
As of today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. See, I think he would make a great villain for the next season of The Flash, right? Like he's not going to be a good actor, but he's good enough for the CW. I feel like that's I feel like that's kind of where I see
He'd have
him.
to lose his hair, but he could pull off Lex Luthor.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Kira, if taken at face value, how much is a quarter worth?
25 cents.
That a girl.
There you go. Okay, alien talk. There are 6 theories. I want to know which one you think is most accurate. There's the rare Earth theory, which is we're the only intelligent life in the universe. There's the great filter theory, which is other intelligent aliens died in mass extinctions already. The Great Silence Theory, other aliens are too intelligent and we're simply not worth their time. The Early Bird Theory, which is life begins first on Earth and we're the most advanced beings in a different kind of life, which is they are not carbon-based like us. Which of those do you think? I can go through them again. There's a lot.
No, I got it.
Okay.
I think about this way more than I should.
And actually, I missed one. There's in a galaxy far, far away, which is they're too far out of reach.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
No, I'm rare earth. I mean, I and I'm not closed-minded. Like I have, my mind is open to intelligent life, other places. I mean, I know there's a lot of Christians who are like, well, it's not in the Bible, but there's a lot that's not in the Bible. My podcast is not in the Bible, but it still exists. So
yeah,
I would add your podcast to the audio Bible.
I'm gonna have to go do a Bible. I'm gonna have to pull up my Bible search and search for just listen to yourself. And see what's in there.
JTLY. Funny.
So I do think, I'm open to the possibility, but I genuinely believe the older I get, the more I look around, the more I see the uniqueness of creation and the really the glory of creation and how it kind of all works together. I know that there are people who feel disappointed by that, but by the idea that, of course, there's other life out there. Like, why would you think we're the only ones? We're not alone. But I do think we were specially created. I really do. Like, the more I learn about the Earth and how precisely it is set in this orbit and how precise your DNA is and the chemicals we need to breathe and to the gravity we need to walk. Like, these are things that I feel are created. I do believe in rare earth. My theory on the aliens, guys,
here we go,
is that it's us. Not even necessarily us right now. I have a theory that we have cracked time travel and what we're seeing is us observing ourselves. So, and that's why a lot of these things go so fast. And we're like, how can they go so fast? Because they're probably not manned spaceships. They're probably like drones or, something that's breaking the time-space continuum.
I love that. So the things that have been documented and declassified are actually us from the future. Us. That are coming back to just for a little visit.
Some of it is us right now, too, for sure. Like, I have no doubt. I live close to SpaceX. And you see a lot of weird stuff. I have no doubt that our governments across the globe have all kinds of insane things that we would never imagine existed. That are just being tested all the time around us. So there's definitely that. But yeah, I think that cracking time travel is a possibility. I mean, we know that physics says that, if some things were to happen, it could happen. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility. We're obviously nowhere near it, or so we think right now. But yeah, I think it's us. I think it's us looking back at us for whatever reasons.
Interesting. Very, very interesting.
I know. I spend way too much time thinking about aliens.
I'm like I'm totally on board with this being the theory now.
Yeah. I'm gonna think about it.
Huh.
Yeah, think about it.
Okay, next question.
I think it explains a lot of the reasons why these things are going so fast too, moving so quickly.
Yeah, the
acceleration of technology is that specifically what you're talking about?
Well, just that we're thinking of them right now as like ships with green men in them. But if we think about them as devices, it's easier to imagine that we have invented a device that could move at the speed of light or something like
that. Elon Musk, genius or mad scientist?
I don't know that he's either. Inspired.
Oh, okay. I think inspired.
Elon Musk is a singer.
No.
He is. He has an album out. And he was on, where's his family from? Poland? He was on like America or Poland's Got Talent or whatever, like 10 years ago. You can find video out there of him singing.
I thought it was from Africa. I thought it was from like South Africa.
Elon Musk.
He's from like Eastern European nation.
Huh.
And he is an artist. Elon Musk is an artist, guys.
I believe it.
Elon, well, he did just create this robot to do minor tasks. Did you see that story?
Yeah, we need to set
Passing
that thing
the
on
butter.
fire and then
Okay.
salt the ground. Yeah.
That's more what I was looking for. I really
What is
wanted
my
an opinion on
purpose?
the robot.
You pass the butter. Well,
No, I wish Elon Musk would just like stop messing around. Just get us to space and leave the robot stuff alone. I mean, Skynet does not need to be aware, dude.
I agree. He said, he thinks we can get to Mars, but that people are definitely going to die on the way.
Oh,
Sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's just
Especially if you send them in
Sure.
pairs like spouses.
Yeah.
If I was confined in a rocket ship with my wife for that long, she would kill me. There's no, and everybody else would just be okay with it because there's no place to hide the body on the ship.
Yeah.
She can't just like put me in the forest like they do
well,
on
that's a good
Dateline.
movie plot. That's a good movie plot.
I'm an
A murder
introvert, so I'd be
mystery.
okay.
That
It's
could
like
be
all
our
the extroverts get killed.
What if that's our new Hallmark movie? Is the two
Murder?
Yeah, no.
Murder.
That there's couples that are on their way, like just singles, right? And there's a bunch of single moms with precocious kids on one side of the
Yes,
rocket,
me
and
too.
then
Yep.
and then well-to-do guys
Yep.
that are too busy to do anything else that have just been assigned to Mars, and that they,
And they're celebrating Christmas at the time.
yes,
It's perpetual Christmas.
no, maybe on the way to Mars, that's the one day that they're uncryogenically frozen is Christmas
It's
Day.
Christmas time.
So every day is Christmas on their way to
Oh
Mars.
boy. Oh, guys. Hang on. Let me write this down. I love it. No, would you guys go to Mars? If you guys got a ticket to Mars?
I don't know.
think
I
that-
thought about that too. I don't know.
Yeah.
They're gonna need pastors on Mars. Mars needs pastors. That's
And moms.
yeah, and moms. If my wife didn't kill me on the journey, I would be there to help
I don't
lead
know.
the Red Planet.
I think quality of life would be very low.
Would
so
you-
I think no.
Would you be the editor at large of Red Planet if we were on Mars?
Wouldn't that be great to go just start Mars with just a conservative, like, just like start it with the revolutionaries and see how that works?
Maybe that's how they're all going to get rid of the conservatives. They're like, send them to Red Planet. Well,
We think
And
that
then it
everyone
would
should do
become-
what they want.
And then it
Motion
would become
passes.
the most successful experiment. We become so prosperous, and then on the blue planet here, everyone would be like, "It's not fair. That's discrimination. They're doing it better than us."
Kira,
We have no mail-in ballots on Mars, you guys.
They got to show up to vote. It's right over
You
there.
got to show up, put your finger in the ink, put it on that paper, and go back to your pod.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing. Kira, you're wonderful as always. Thank you for joining us, ma'am. Let our audience know where it is that they can find you, so they can follow you on social and subscribe to your locals channel and all that. Where can we get you?
Yeah, if you want to hear more from me personally and have some fun conversations and just bonus content from me, bonus discussions, join me over at davisnation.locals.com. And right now, actually, Locals just unveiled a new subscription level, which is kind of cool. So you can subscribe for a year. You get 2 months free. I think that's kind of a good deal. Some people over there, guys, I have people that don't even participate on the page. They just get the subscription because they just want to know how to support me. And I don't do like Patreon. I don't have like Cash App or like you hit me up with this, that, or the other. I'm not into that. But there are people who I want to give you something for the money you're getting. But there are some people who are like, I don't need another social media platform, but I love your voice and I want to make sure that it's out there. So there are people who do that. Feel free to subscribe that way, of course. But if you don't want to do any of that, join me on Twitter. I'm very vocal on there at Real Kira Davis. That's Kira. And you can find me over at Red State. I'm the editor at large over there. I write a couple of opinion columns every week and sometimes throw in some aggregation work. And I think look up Kevin Kiley on Twitter. Kevin Kiley CA is a great place to start looking him up. But also, generally speaking, I can be seen on Fox News a couple of times a month as well. Keep your eyes open for that. But I'll be on in the next couple of weeks as well. But I love talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me on, and I'll send you my invoice.
Yeah, thank you. The norm is $50. Thanks, Kira. You've been great.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye.
It's a great line. I'm just going to steal from now on.
Kira freaking Davis.
Yeah. She's awesome.
She is. She really walks the line very well between.
I almost called her Mama Kira, like a whole bunch.
That would have been. On the one hand, it feels
'Cause
appropriate.
we
On
have
the other hand, it
Uncle-
feels like you're going to get killed.
Well, we have Uncle Stevesy.
Yes.
We've got some people that are, kind of parental figures to the
Aunt
show.
Leanne.
I mean, yeah, and she's not our mother, but
right.
It feels good.
Yeah.
I like having her on.
Yeah,
she's
cool.
cool.
I would let Kira adopt me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll follow.
I
the
would feel
paperwork.
safe. I would feel like if anyone messed with me, that
they're their host.
Yeah,
but she does a great job.
She would take a measured approach, but that she would make sure that
Grace first, and then there's the iron fist.
Hence
behind
the
it.
measure.
Yeah. So she does a great job as I start this statement for the third time of walking the line between very serious and very funny. And she flows between those two things incredibly well, which is one of the reasons that I enjoy having her on and enjoy following her on Twitter, enjoy listening to her podcast, because she does have a very robust comedic side to her, which comes out a lot in the work that she does with the Babylon Bee, and not just the times where she's on their podcast where she's been featured there, but also in the sketches that she does a brilliant job in helping to write and act in those sketches. I think she's just been phenomenal.
And if you search the internet, you can find that she does some stand-up.
She does,
back in I think 2018 may have been the last time, at least that it was filmed.
But it's
she's very
pretty
funny.
good stuff. She's very funny. I learned a lot about the way that the California recall elections work, which also makes me very concerned about the way that the California recall elections work. Is it like essentially it's yes or no, and if they vote no, not to keep Gavin Newsom in office, then it's like just this, It's like 15 candidates, and it's like, okay, well, if not him, then which one of these guys? And at that
point,
it's
a potluck of candidates.
Yeah, and I wonder how many people, like, at that point, they're like, no, I don't think it should be Gavin Newsom, and they look at now the candidates, and they're like, oh, crap, just keep him. We only have, it's only another year. So there's a lot of intriguing things about that. I thought she had an interesting perspective on Larry Elder as well.
There's only a year left in his term. Like, right. I didn't think about that.
But yeah, and Kermit the Frog might get it. Also, we did come up with a new way to say
I would love if
election frog.
Yeah, I would love if Kermit was.
That would be great.
We're going into more lockdowns.
I don't know if that was Kermit the Frog or Cow Man.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's a very bizarre way to do this recall election, but with only a year left, it'll be interesting, I think, to say the least. And that's happening, she said, on September the 14th. So we'll make sure this episode goes to air before then.
This episode is airing before September 14th.
Great job.
Thank you.
So another thing I thought was rather interesting is the way that she talked about Kevin Kiley, because she's never backed a political candidate before, even when the Republicans have a candidate that is going to participate in elections, whether it's on the state level or if it's a representative or senator, where you're looking at national representation of some kind, presidential candidate. She's always been very fair and showing the pros and cons to the candidate, the strengths and weaknesses, where their opportunities for improvement are. Do they really care about certain issues as much as they're making it seem like, or is that something that specifically for them is just to get votes? And it seems like Kevin kind of hits all of those for her. So it was interesting to hear her talk about him, because I've never heard her discuss a political candidate that way ever. That was cool, and then Controlled Rowdiness was awesome as always.
Fun.
And you really stuck to the aliens bit this time.
Yeah, I did some research. Look, I do research for the show. Okay, I don't want to read the book,
right?
But if it's getting some different alien theories together, I'll do that.
Yeah, certainly. If all you have to do is look at one meme from from the Christian Nerds Unite page, then you'll pitch it.
You completely nailed it.
Thanks, Kira, for being on once again. You guys make sure that you go and follow Kira on Twitter. Check out her Locals channel, as well as Red and Black, which is a show she does on Facebook where she talks with other Black conservatives. All the links to those are in the show notes, and more, where you can check out Kira wherever she is at. For the Reverend and the Reprobate, I have been Lucas Pinkard. Danley has been terrible.
I've lived up to my name.
You have indeed.
As the Reprobate.
But you know what? I appreciate that about you.
Is that what you appreciate about me?
It is.
Okay, bye.
I'm Kira Davis, And this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and the Reprobate. They watch Hallmark movies.
Big thanks again to.
Hey, wait, what did you think about the mass erotic ebook plagiarist?
Hated it. Hated that 100%. And I'm really glad that she went with game show host. That's probably going to get cut from the episode, as is this. But anyway.